the news today that Jayden Daniels officially will not play on Sunday's preseason finale. Now, Dan Quinn didn't go into any more detail or expound upon who else wasn't going to play, but it goes without saying, Danny, if Jayden Daniels is not playing, almost everyone who matters and starts will not play.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you'd see your established veterans. There aren't a ton on this roster that have been here for a while, but you start to add it up, some of the new guys. You probably are not going to see Allen, Payne, McLaurin, Wagner, Luvu, even some of the other starters now that have kind of been getting into pretty good work here this summer and beyond, and the St. Juice of the world, or certainly wouldn't expect to see Zach Ertz or otherwise. So I think you're going to be down, quote unquote, a bunch of starters or regular contributors.
Do you think the young guys that are starters but still not proven play at all, like a Benjamin St. Just, Emmanuel Forbes, those types of guys? Because you cannot convince me they don't need the work.
So here's where I'm going to go. How do I say it? I'm trying to think of that, formulate the way I'm going to say this. I think if they know, proven or otherwise, that you're going to be counted on right away and not working your way in, you're going to be out this weekekend.
Then they're out.
So
those are your starting boundary corners.
I think Forbes will still might be in there because I think he's battling it out with the whomever else, whether it's Michael Davis or some of the other guys for playing time. I don't know that they know there. I think they know about St. Just. However good you think he is, that's their starter on one side probably.
What I'm fascinated by in the wake of the Jahan Dotson deal yesterday is now the wide receiver competition at the back of the roster, where if I had to put a bet in on who makes it as the fifth and sixth receiver, I would just roll with the veterans of Jamison Crowder and Byron Pringle, and it'd just be an ultimately like a redundant receiving room. Bunch of guys like Jamison Crowder that are older filling out the back of the depth chart. Mm-hmm. I'd like it to be a Bryson Tremaine, who's 6'4" and athletic and can make leaping catches and look awesome on special teams. I would keep him in a second over Byron Pringle. I'd probably keep him over Jamison Crowder if I have a return man on my roster I feel good about. You could convince me that somebody like Martavis Bryant now at 6'4" could make the roster if he's shown them anything in practice. We only saw him targeted down the field once, and a pass was broken up in his preseason debut against the Dolphins, but I would think he's going to play a ton. That's what I'm fired up about. The receiving room behind McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, starting with Luke McCaffrey, Bryson Tremaine on down. This game is all about that group and probably at least 2, if not 3 spots up for grabs.
Just sort of doing quick, some quick back of the napkin math, right? So here's my theory that I'm working on. I don't know if I've got this right or not. This is not based on anything. I think Jamison Crowder is going to make this team. I think Jamison Crowder is their punt returner. I don't think they've shown that yet, but I think that's what's going to happen. I almost view him as Olamide Zaccheaus' backup, right? So in other words, you'll be limited to slot duty. Maybe if somebody needs a quick rest on the outside, we'll do that. But for the most part, I think he's almost your backup slot receiver and number 1 punt returner, because I think they view Zaccheaus maybe as a bit more important than to have him go back there a bunch of times. So I think that's what's going to happen there. So now all of a sudden, there's 5 that you know about: McLaurin, Brown, Zaccheaus, Luke McCaffrey, Jamison Crowder. That 6th spot, to your point, if it is 6, maybe it's 7, although I think you're going to run into a number crunch elsewhere.
It would be 7 more likely if they didn't have a return man in the 6 or in the 5. Mm-hmm. And if you're saying Crowder's the return man, then now a 7th makes less sense.
I agreed. So that's 6th, as you said. Kaz Allen, although we're calling him a running back now,
he's now basically in the running back room, it sounds like.
But it's Mitchell Tinsley, it's Bryson Tremaine, it's Martavis Bryant, it's Byron Pringle. I mean, to me, Tremaine is the easy choice. But again, I don't. They don't think the way that we do. I go, I don't have anybody like that. There's nobody that is his size, that looks like him, that's that big and physical. I need somebody like that, and I'm more interested in the unknown there than I am, with all due respect to, I've seen Byron Pringle, I have seen Martavis Bryant over the course of the years in the league. That's not intriguing. That's not sexy. That's, now for them, they see these guys every day and they don't care about the unknown. They're not as into development at this point. They're trying to do something here in terms of building culture and building something going forward. But for me, Tremaine is way more intriguing than those other guys.
You mentioned Kaz Allen. I want to go back to him quickly before we hit on Daniels. It may not matter what position he gets listed at, running back or receiver.
Football player.
7th receiver, 4th running back, who cares? Like if there are 6 receivers and 3 backs and they feel like they could have 10 at the 2 positions combined, then Kaz Allen could be the 10th guy potentially. And I say that because it's very obvious they really, really like him. I was tweeting about this during the last preseason game. But when you start using a guy at a different position and involving him to the extent that they did, giving him those carries, when you are designing screens for him in these preseason games, it's obvious they're trying to see what he does. You're not doing that because you don't like someone. You're not featuring someone. They have him returning kicks and punts. They have him at running back. They have him at receiver. They like him. Then he fumbles, and instead of being in the doghouse, he's right back on the field in practice. He's right back involved. They are trying to give him every opportunity to get a roster spot, at the least to be on this practice squad again. But it's obvious, and they've talked about this now publicly. Kingsbury yesterday, we've seen it though, whenever they've been asked about him. They think he is a multiple, versatile, explosive player. They're quick to say he's not Debo Samuel, obviously. By the way, stand them next to each other.
Yeah, they make one of that guy.
It's like a DeVito Arnold thing from
It's from
Twins,
Twins.
right? They look nothing alike. But the point is, there aren't that many guys that can do a little bit of everything as a gadget guy. And I don't know how well he does everything. He might do everything not that well. We're going to find that out. But I think they like his versatility and his explosiveness on a roster where there's just not a lot of that on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they're intrigued by him. Let's get to Daniels for a moment. Question when we went to break, and we asked you guys this, and we'll hit the phones on this. They're wide open at 800-636-1067 if you want to hop in right now. What would you grade Daniels since the day he was drafted?
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's a different grade, just the 2 preseason games.
A- for me. The only negative was that entire weird, I either texted or faxed or screen capped or did something where I sent another player, even though he's my very good friend, something that we were doing in practice. I need you to not do that. I need my starting quarterback, who I love. This didn't change that I loved him before, during, and after. I'm a huge fan. That's a no. That's a good learning experience. It could have been a lot worse. Giving away state secrets like that. There's no reason to do that. I think we learned our lesson there. Of course, it hasn't happened again, and we move on. But that was the only kind of lapse in judgment. And if that's all we get from a young guy that's going to hopefully lead the franchise for a long, long, long time, that'll be a funny anecdote we tell. You know what I mean? Like 10 years from now. You remember that time that Jayden Daniels texted his buddy Brandon Ayuk and they were on FaceTime talking about Washington's offense? Ha ha ha. We all had to share a good laugh about it later. That's the only blemish to me. Everything else, I feel like I'm going, if I had a daughter, please date her. You know, like this is the thing that I have wanted for some time. It's not the superstar when the lights come on. It's not the working out for Instagram. It's doing what you're supposed to do because you're supposed to do it. Going above and beyond, checking everything that you can do, but checking every box that you can check to try to be the best you can. You may not be, but I'll go down that way rather than some of the part-time effort for show versus the real nose of the grindstone effort.
Yeah, I'll give him an A+ in the 2 preseason games based on executing what they asked him to execute.
Mm-hmm.
The degree of difficulty was low. That's not his problem. That's not his job. All he could do is, you want me to throw a screen? I'll throw a screen. He had one bad pass that I can remember legitimately. I mean, there were other incompletions. Like, he had an incompletion that was wide of Jahan Dotson and what'll be maybe Dotson's final target in Washington on a quick out route in the 2nd preseason game. That wasn't a good pass. But the one pass that was like, ooh, was the first one he ever threw, was over top of Austin Eckler on the little running back screen, 800 miles an hour.
Targeted 96 on the outside, a little high and wide there.
Shot out of a cannon, right? But for the most part, I mean, he batted like 995 with accuracy, ball placement, decision-making. And yeah, you aced an easy quiz. It was the quiz you were given. He aced it. So I'll give him an A+ on the preseason. Kept the ball out of harm's way. Got it predetermined, pre-snap to the right guy. I think a lot of things were easy. They're going to get harder, but he crushed it. For the entire offseason, I give him an A as well. Because there have only been a couple times, like the picture that you referenced, where anything happened that was not completely the way you draw it up in central casting and when it's 72 and sunny. So the excitement level should be high. People should be very, very hopeful about this quarterback, but we just got to see it, man. We're in a medium where we talk all day long about everything that's going on in the moment. And we, as many different ways as possible over 4.5 hours, peel back different layers on the people that you guys find the most interesting and the most pressing angles about those individuals in DC sports. That's the medium. But to an extent, Time's just got to elapse, and we got to get to a point where we can watch him in a real game, play real football. Because the rest of the stuff now that the hay is in the barn
Mhm.
doesn't mean there's not other ways to discuss excitement and to gauge interest and to try to get a feel for how fired up people are. But it became pretty obvious early in the preseason. They're not going to ask him to do a lot of the things that we need to see him do to figure out how good he's going to be until the real bullets are flying in September. So bring on September.
Indeed. Yeah, let's get that calendar turned. I think it's well put. The for my own edification, this is for me, fan Danny Rouillet watching at home. I want to see all the things just because I want to see them. You know, when you get the brand new sports car, but there's construction at the end of your little residential street, so you can't go out on the highway. You can't go 105 right now. You can drive to the end of the block and bring it back, and you still get some really cool stuff. And the speedometer goes up to 180. You know, and that sounds really neat. Cool. I can't do that yet. I got to go 20 and go over a speed hump. Bring it back to the driveway, and you can look at it, and it's really, really nice, but you have to wait until that construction's done.